Hello, everyone. Good evening, good morning, depending on where you are in the world. We're so thrilled that we have fans from Australia, Great Britain, Ireland, New Zealand. I mean, all over the world. So I can't tell what time it is. You'd have to have a clock for every location. I'm Bill Cannon from Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories. And with me tonight, you notice his new haircut straight out of Brooklyn, Phil Grimaldi. How you doing, Phil?
Pretty good, Bill. And I'm going to explain this haircut in a second.
Well, that's you're looking good anyway, folks. With we're doing a lot of different things on Police Off the Cuff and Real Crime Stories, and one of the things we started to do is we've been getting like some people reaching out to us and ask us if they could come on our show, and we actually have a commitment from Sammy the Bullgravano, who has his own podcast called Our Thing. It's a very successful podcast. And of course, we said, Sammy, of course, we would love for you to come on our podcast. So on September 15th at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we're going to have Sammy the Bull Gravano come on our show. And the funny thing is that Phil and Tommy Dades, who's been on our show quite a few times, knew Sammy the Bull from growing up in Brooklyn. So they had run into him back in the day. And in fact, Tommy Dades considers Sammy the Bull a friend. But we're going to cover this again in a police way. We're not going to glorify a mobster's life, but he has a great story to tell, and we're going to tell the story. And we also have another guy from the Bath Avenue boys, Jimmy Calandria, another made guy who's got an amazing story to tell. So no, we're not becoming the wise guy and the mob podcast, but we like to have an eclectic group of audience members, and I think it will be pretty exciting. And in turn, I'm sure it'll lead to other great guests coming on the show. I've reached out to a number of different actors that play mob parts, and we're looking to get them on the show too. Phil, you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, couple of things. Real quick, Jimmy Calandria was actually never made. He probably would have gotten there, but they killed his best friend, Paulie Galino, and I'm sure he'll talk about that. This is something to do with his story, Mob Over Miami. Tommy Dades was involved in that book, and it really is a quite riveting story about Jimmy Calandria. And obviously, Sammy the Bull, everybody knows who he is. I think he's internationally known. He was underboss in the Gambino crime family and, under John Gotti. And he wound up becoming, he testified in court, put a lot of guys away, and he was given a deal. He eventually came out of jail, and he started his own podcast, and he's doing very successful numbers with it. He's got a lot of followers and viewers. And if you look at, I think we mentioned this before, you look at all the great mob movies, The Godfather 1, 2, and 3, Goodfellas. These are classic movies. The Untouchables, the other one there, Casino. And listen, I could go on and on. The point is there's a tremendous interest in it. We're going to continue to do obviously our professional opinions on different matters and stuff and cases. But I think that there's definitely a spot for, hearing from the other side, so to speak. And you're going to get the perspective from us. You're going to get the perspective from the guys who once were in the life, as they say, the life. And, Tommy Dades, who's been on, will probably be on with us with Sammy. And he's like the encyclopedia of organized crime in, I guess you could say the New York area, but generally Brooklyn. He knew guys. And the other night when he was on Jimmy Calandria's show, he was spitting out things about, stuff from before we were even born related to organized crime. So he's a wealth of information in that respect.
I think everyone loves organized crime stories. They love mafia stories. And I think most people know the story of Sammy Bull. Sammy the Bullgravano. He'd gone on 19 hits in his mafia career, and he basically took a deal from the government to testify against John Gotti, and he's free. He's free now, living in Arizona, and he has his own podcast. Some folks may think that's outrageous, but you know something, we don't make the rules. The federal government cut that deal with him, and he's a free man to this day. Hello from Omaha, Nebraska. Choose life. You know, folks, one of the things we wanted to talk about tonight, of course, Summer Wells, and that's why we're here tonight. And I'm not going to come out of the box and say, oh, we got a smoking gun and there's this new information and that information. Well, we're hearing a lot from people on YouTube about, is this a cold case? And we want to answer some of those questions and then maybe even restate some of the things that we've already been over. And there was a guy named Kenneth Maines on about a week ago who does a lot of work in cold cases. And I thought, Rosemary Hill, thank you so much, a new member to the Police Off the Cuff family. And he gave a really heartfelt, sort of very straight-laced and very educated analysis of this case. And I almost thought I was listening to him say the exact same things we've said over time. But one of the things that everyone wants to know, is this case now a cold case? And Philly, I'm going to put that question to you. Is this a cold case?
Well, before I answer, I just want to explain my new haircut. I have several close friends, and I have a couple of relatives, and my good friend Joe, a couple of the guys that we were tight with, decided to shave our heads in solidarity with him. I mean, I'm not down to the skin. I'm pretty close to it, and this is a big step for me. Tommy shaved his head, another good friend of ours, Louie. And I just got to mention my cousin Peter, who's battling cancer, his son-in-law Guy, my other cousin Jamie out in Long Island. And then I have two good friends that are waiters at a restaurant in Brooklyn, Spumoni Gardens. Their dads are both battling cancer. Lots of prayers to everybody, just a little solidarity with the haircuts. But getting back to Summer Wells, cold case. I would say 100% absolutely not a cold case, and I'll give you the reasons why. There was over 1,000 tips that were coming in. We're up to day 70. That 1,000 was probably about 2 weeks ago. There could be 1,200 at this point. I don't know how many there is. Again, we don't have access to the case folder. I am sure that a lot of investigative work is going into this case, and there's different ways of gauging what a cold case is. Now, in my opinion, in this case, it's far from cold. It's only 70 days. I know it sounds like a lot, and it is a lot. Poor Summer is missing all those days. We don't know where she is, and it's definitely a lot, and I can't even think of 70 minutes being out, 70 seconds not knowing where my daughter is or any of my children. And so the point is this: a cold case, in my view, is, and every case is different. This case might be cold a long time from now. Other cases, murder cases or missing cases, can go cold very quickly. But in my opinion, this case is not cold. And the reasons that I think that is all of the stuff that I mentioned with all the leads that are probably still going on, all the technical work, the cell phone records, computers, video cameras. There's going to be a lot of follow-up done on those things. So I doubt very highly this would be considered cold. A cold case, in my opinion, is this: when all investigative leads have been exhausted, meaning you checked it out and there was nothing there to go further on that specific lead. When all leads are exhausted and there's nothing else coming in, no new information coming in, and then you just start to go over the stuff you already did, or you look into, you shake the tree a little with different things. That's what I might consider a cold case. And I think in this specific case, it's far from cold. I mean, we haven't even gone through one season yet. When you go through in an area where it gets cold and warm with spring, summer, winter, and fall, and a person is missing, that might turn up, evidence, or it may turn up remains because of the different seasons. Things die, the weeds drop down. So, there's a lot of things to take into consideration. To put it in a nutshell, no, absolutely not. This is not a cold case, Bill. What do you think, in your opinion? You're a sergeant in the homicide squad for a long time. In your opinion, do you agree?
Well, something, I 100% agree with you. Danielle Flood, thank you so much for the $15 super chat. Glad to see you guys keep up the amazing work for Summer Moon, Utah Wells. She deserves justice, no doubt. One of the things is that I've said this before: investigation is an art and a science, right? And we're hoping that the science meets the art of investigation, and the police, the the TBI, the FBI have some stuff up their sleeves that we don't know. There's so much being said over the internet, but guess what? No one on the internet, none of us YouTube content creators are going to solve this case. This case is going to be solved by the police, by the TBI, by the FBI. And when they're ready to move forward with their evidence, they're going to move forward. And I know everyone, of course, is frustrated. And I don't blame them. I'm frustrated too. And one of the reasons I'm frustrated is because I'm used to knowing the inside information. And I don't know the inside. I'm not privy to the inside information. And what compounds this is that, you know, Don Wells is on, seems like he's on YouTube every other night speaking to someone else and just letting, just putting forth information, whether it's true or false. Someone in the chat asked, would the police or the FBI or the TBI use that information? They could use that information, but if they use the information, if information is collected, say, by a content creator, that becomes what we know in the legal spectrum as discovery. Discovery is evidence and other information, written information, all kinds of evidence that the prosecution has. And by law, they must turn it over to the defense. So if the prosecution accepted some of this information from, say, content creators, it would become subject to discovery. And who that would be helping would be the defense, because the prosecution had nothing to do with collecting this information. So they cannot verify its veracity. So therefore, I don't think any content creator is giving over information to the TBI, FBI, or the local police, because it puts them in a position where that information is discovery. And I know we have Joe Murray in the chat, and he's listening, and I'm sure that if he can comment on this in the chat, I would love to see what he's saying. He may have fallen asleep by now. I don't know, but that's why I don't think that they would use any of the information, other than if it's like smoking gun information. Otherwise, this stuff becomes what's known as discovery.
Yeah, if someone was to make a spontaneous utterance, which is a legal term, during one of these YouTube podcasts or true content creators, or, you know, if they say something, or if it's a direct message to them, even not on camera, and now this person is coming forward with that information, that would be obviously helpful. And but some of the stuff is like you said, it would be discovery material. And, you know, we sure wish we missed Joe Murray tonight. He's under the weather, which we wish him well. We're hoping he's going to be feeling better real soon and have him back on with us. But this is where he would come in handy.
Well, Joe Murray just was in the chat, and Joe, he said the prosecutor must turn over evidence or material within their control. But Joe, my question to you is, if they accepted some of the information that's being reported from civilians, wouldn't they, if they collected this, wouldn't they be responsible to turn that over to the defense?
Yeah, I guess we got to wait for Joe to respond to that. Anything in a homicide investigation, or any investigation, when you go to trial, whatever you have at some point, I mean, the district attorney's office, a lot of times they like to hold it back till the last minute, but they turn it over to the defense so they can mount their defense and maybe figure out how they're going to cross-examine witnesses, challenge evidence, etc. So it all gets turned over. And the thing is, if stuff isn't turned over, but the defense attorney can now go onto YouTube and look at all of these different things and maybe create doubt if someone is charged. I mean, I'm not talking about this case or any case. It could be, you know, just any case. But if a case is talked about, now a defense attorney can go through a lot of these contents on YouTube and say, well, did this person say this at this time? Did they say that? And challenge it. And then I believe they would have to let the prosecution, or the defense would have to let the prosecution know, we intend to call this witness that's a YouTube creator because this, and this was said on the. Phil,
when I asked Joe that last question, he gave me a one-word answer. He said yes. I guess he's not making $6.50 an hour. He's not going to give a long You know,
You could tell he's under
in
the
depth.
weather if that's what he did.
That's
You
right.
could
He
tell
just
he's under
gave
the
me a
weather.
one-word answer. Yes. You know.
Yeah.
So,
God-
folks,
God bless
anyone
you.
that's on YouTube has a right to do all of this. I'm not going to say
Of course,
anyone
of
doesn't have a
course.
right to it, but look, one of the things that we do when we do work a homicide, we sit around together and we discuss. I used to call it hypothesizing and theorizing, and we discuss the case and we discuss what ifs and what do you think of this and what do you think of that, establishing a direction to this case. And I think early on in this case, I had said, and I still feel this way, that the answer to this case is in the world of Don and Candace. I think somewhere in their circle is the answer to this case. And I still believe that to this day. And I haven't seen anything that has made me change my mind. I mean, there's many, look, could I be wrong? 100% I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. And I freely admit that because, as I said, investigation is an art and a science. And you can't think in absolutes. You have to have an open mind. And if you're going in the wrong direction, you have to be ready to change direction. And according to what the evidence is telling you. And you can't be rigid in this business. You can't say, oh, no, it's this way, because that's, you're not going to solve a lot of cases if you're that way. You have to be willing to roll with the punches.
You made a good point, Bill. It just sparked something in my memory. Hypothesizing and theorizing. I love the way you said it. We used to call it chewing the fat, but whatever it was, I could remember on any high profile case or a homicide investigation, the case is going, maybe it's a couple of days old, and we would get some material witness to the case into the interview room. We would start talking to them, and then we would get information. It would usually be me and my partner or me and the guy from the homicide squad come out of the room, and everybody'd be waiting. There'd be 7, 8, 10 detectives, the bosses, and they'd say, all right, what'd they say? So we would gather around and we would say, all right, they told us this, this, and that. And then exactly what you just described, the hypothesizing and the theorizing, we would put our heads together and say, all right, he said that, so that would mean this. Why don't we go do that? I mean, I'm using this and that as examples because I'm not being specific. I'm just using a general case. But that's a lot of times how direction would either change, like you just said, or we would continue further on down the road of the direction we were in. All right, now we got a little bit more based on what this person told us. We're going to go recheck an area to look for evidence, or we're going to go talk to another person that they just gave us. And then the pieces start to eventually all come together. And that's how homicide investigation goes. And it's not always successful. Sometimes there are cases that go for many years unsolved and stuff like that. But generally speaking, we would all put our heads together. And listen, sometime there would be a detective or a boss that would dissent and say, no, I don't think it. And I could remember specifically a homicide investigation. It was a high profile case, and we had a guy identified in photos, 4 witnesses to a homicide. 3 of them said in the photo array it was definitely him. The 4th said, I think it's him, and pointed to the same guy. When we got the guy in the interview, in the lineup, we conducted a lineup. 4 witnesses. 1 said, I think it's this guy. The other 3 couldn't pick him out. And there was just something strange about it. And I'll never forget my partner's words. He goes, I don't know. There's just something. And we thought the guy did it. We thought we had the right guy. We were real sure that this was the guy. And then my partner goes, nah, he's just not. There's something missing with this case. The guy's not acting right. Sure enough, 24 hours later, we got a phone call from another agency. They had arrested 2 guys in another state, and the gun that was used matched. And we went and we interviewed those 2 guys, and they wound up confessing to the murder. But we were this close to possibly arresting the wrong person. So glad it didn't happen, but on occasion it does happen. But I will never forget my partner who had more time on the job than me. I think I was a rookie detective then, saying something just don't feel right about it. And I really thought we had the right guy. So putting your heads together, hypothesizing and theorizing, it really is part of the investigation.
Free thinker Deb S., thank you so much for the $9.99 super chat. You wrote to us, thank you very much for your amazing dedication for seeking justice. Appreciate you for keeping Precious Summer relevant and not giving up on her. One of the things that I always like to talk about, there's something in homicide investigation called mind mapping or data mining. I think data mining is the more up-to-date term. And there's also a term we've used, and you hear other homicide investigators use it. It's called victimology. And what that simply is the study of the background of the victim. In this incident, the victim is a 5-year-old little girl. So her victimology, of course, is going to study her background. And right away, what's going to be included in her background, of course, is the two most important people in her life, her parents. In this instance, it's Don and Candace. Now go a step further with that. We would completely look into the backgrounds of Don and Candace. Let's go with Don first. We would look into his work history, vehicles that he owns, his criminal history, his marriage history, licenses that he owns. Does he have gun permits? Does he have any other kind of licenses? His friends. When he did get arrested, who were his cellmates? What was he arrested for? He lived in other states, right? I believe they lived in Wisconsin. Let's look. We have to look into that. His teachers at school. I mean, it encompasses such a great deal of information that in the old days, when they used to put it on a blackboard, it might be on about, 5 or 6 boards to gather all of that information. Now it's gathered by a computer. We have a database called Faces of the Nation, or AutoTrack, that if you even saw anyone who's even not involved in crime, if you ran your name, it would come up with information you'd be shocked at. Your first grade teacher, where addresses that you lived, cars that you owned, all kinds of things that you would have forgotten. But this information could become critical in a homicide investigation, And one of the things that I always like to do in a homicide investigation, in New York City, we love to use that term, shake the tree. And part of shaking the tree is enforcement at locations. And I'm sure there's places in Tennessee that the criminal element hangs out in. Drug dealers, people that commit crimes, stealing cars, forgery, all of that stuff. We need to debrief those people after they're arrested because of that old expression, birds of a feather flock together. And lots of times the criminal element knows information about crimes that no one else knows about. And that's how, in my homicide experience, and not just in homicide, I was in the detective bureau for 16 years, robberies, grand larcenies, GLAs, burglaries. We would get information from the criminal element that might help us in solving a case, because if you can give someone court consideration or give them a get out of jail free card, you'd be surprised at the information they may come up with to help your case.
Bill, you brought up the different databases that are queried for information on victimology or perpetrators or family members. When I was in the intelligence division, we had access to HIDA. You know what HIDA is, Bill? HIDA was
high intensity drug trafficking agency.
Yeah. And it was a culmination of several different agencies, DEA, FBI, all different law enforcement agencies. So we had access to that. So when we were doing counterterrorism stuff after 9/11, we would throw names to them and they would give us back. I mean, the average person was 100 pages of information. It would give, there was a thing called LexisNexis. I'm sure you're familiar with that too,
yes,
Bill. And it would give us, obviously, all the things Bill said, current name, address, date of birth, social security number. Then it give previous addresses, vehicles owned, previous vehicles owned, relatives, possible relatives, neighbors, possible neighbors. Gave a ton of information, fishing licenses, gun permits, boating licenses, all different things. So now you say to yourself, why would you need all that information? But that gives you a tremendous background on the person that you're looking at. And you don't know if maybe, someone disposed of a body on a boat and they have a fishing license and they have a boat registered in the name. So you would go in that direction. So a lot of times, some of that 150 pages they handed to you, a lot of it might not have been relevant. But in a specific case, a specific person, a specific investigation, it might have the key to the whole case, might be right in that report that you get from them. So that type of stuff I'm sure is being done, victimology. And when we started to look at this case from the beginning, I mean, our opinions we kind of went into high gear. The guy you were talking about, Maines, earlier, Bill, Detective Maines, I think it was. He basically
Kenny Maines. Kenny
Kenny
Maines
Maines.
is his
He
name. Yes.
basically said, now he looked at it and he talked very slowly and he was methodical about everything that he said. But he basically, in a nutshell, said everything that we said, which was our first instinct on this case, was that we thought that, you know, based on what we saw, that we thought that Candace and Don had a lot of answering to do. So now I know, Bill, you said you were going to play a little bit of the interview, and I guess maybe we could do that and then talk a little further about it, because I want to kind of justify. I want to explain, not justify. I want to explain why and your opinion was the same opinion. Why I felt that I thought that they needed to be looked at a little further. I think there was, a good cause and good reason, and I think there's a vindication at the end of it. I'll explain that too.
Yeah, I think you're right. I got the video queued up, and I'm going to put it on the screen.
I wish you would, because I want to make a comment about it.
By her swing, I feel in my heart that somebody has came up here and took her, has lured her away from here. Me and my mother and her were planting flowers, and we went in after we got done washing our hands, and she got a piece of candy from Grandma, and she wanted to go back over and see her brothers, and I said okay, and I walked her all the way over to the porch, and I watched her walk into the kitchen where the boys were watching TV. And I told the boys, I said, watch Summer, I'll be back. And within 2 minutes, I came back. And I asked the boys where their sister was, and they said, she went downstairs, Mom, to play with her toys in the playroom. I said, okay. And I yelled downstairs for her a couple times, and I didn't get no answer, which was unusual because usually she always answers me. And so I went down there to check, and she was nowhere in sight. She was just gone. I don't go on walks around here or runs because I'm scared of the bears and snakes and even the coyotes that are around here. Well, whoever has my daughter, I pray and hope that they have not harmed her and they bring her back to us safe and sound.
Just go to the FBI, the police, and clear it up. I mean, I don't know. It seems kind of elusive.
It's really strange that I've never seen this truck and I've never heard of it until just recently. But I wish they would come forward and explain themselves. And if you're not a suspect, at least come forward and say what you've seen. She was a tomboy. I shaved my head. She wanted to have her head shaved like me and the boys did.
She tried to shave her head
She tried
in
to
the
shave her
back
head
and make
herself.
it, I think you can see it in some of the pictures, and it was getting out of control. So we decided to shave her head off and let it grow back long, and she shaved her head so she wouldn't feel bad, and but it didn't bother her at this point. Well, I knew right away that she was abducted. I knew that right away, and that's what I told them from the beginning. But they have to go through their, I forget the word.
Investigation.
They have to do one step at a time, I guess. But I'm sorry that they had to spend so many man hours in these woods and everything. I've seen them limping and everything else, and I feel for them. But I just wish there was a way that neighbors could search neighbors' houses, and then if they're not willing, get a search warrant or something. But there's just no way you can search every single house, in the eastern United States or whatever. But I wish there was a way. Just thankful for the person or persons that's doing that, out of love, and trying to get information and trying to get her found. And we thank them from the bottom of our hearts.
That means a lot.
And we thank everybody who's trying so hard and praying so hard. And she's an awesome young lady, and we just want her back. But, yeah, there's always going to be haters, and you know, it's always going to be that way in this world, and we just want to focus on the good friends and Christian people that are trying to help us and praying for us and praying for Summer. And we thank them from the bottom of our hearts. And that's the kind of people we try to relate with and socialize with. So we don't know anything about, you know, no red truck, or we hardly know many of our neighbors. I mean, because we just try to be around good people. I mean, and we do have good people in this area. We found out since this has all happened. We got some real good neighbors and good folks everywhere. But
The most important thing is to bring Summer home. Hey, I'm sorry that you feel this way about us, but we love our children with everything we have. We've never went without, thanks to Summer's daddy and my husband. He's always provided for us and has worked as much as he could and can and still is. And I'm sorry that you guys feel that way, but that's my baby. And
You know, when I watched that, I know that was maybe a day or two after this occurred, and it's difficult not to have your suspicions raised when you watch that interview.
Absolutely, Bill. And, you know, listen, I didn't become a detective right out of the police academy. When I came out of the police academy, I wore a uniform, went on patrol on foot in the car, and you answered calls. I had thousands of interactions with people. We call it a job in the NYPD. I went on thousands of jobs. And, you know, people that aren't involved in criminal activity or don't have criminal activity around them aren't calling the police. So a lot of times you'd get to know who the victims are, or who's calling the police, if it's a domestic incident, if it's drugs. So my point is this: I could walk into a situation and make a judgment based on the appearance of the people that I was talking to. And my judgment on those two people is they look like narcotics abusers or alcohol abusers. So there's no question in my mind. And when we came to that conclusion early on, and we said, so we raised all the red flags that we thought that were, you know, out of the ordinary, when, you know, right off the bat in the interview you just showed, when he said about the shaving the hair, that was out of the ordinary behavior. We thought that there could be alcohol use, drug use, and I could go on and on with all the different red flags that, you know, they were both committed to the fact that she was kidnapped in the middle of the day. I find that very hard to believe. She was abducted. They were resigned to the fact that she was abducted and that she wasn't alive anymore. They both indicated that in numerous interviews. So my point is this: over time of being a police officer, being in law enforcement, you can make judgments like this pretty quickly. And your instincts kick in and you know where you're going with this investigation. A person, two people or a person is reporting someone missing, and obviously you're going to look at them and get all the information out of them that you can, especially it's dealing with a 5-year-old child that's missing. Now it's going on for hours and days, and now it's 70 days. So I think the vindication, based on what we said in our earlier podcast, our earlier shows, that we thought that they may be involved and that we would be looking at them a little clearer. The vindication on that is that the fact that we said the Bureau of Child Services should be looking into the other children in the home. Lo and behold, they removed the 3 children. That was weeks ago, maybe 6 weeks ago, 5-6 weeks ago. So I think that our instincts were correct, that there wasn't a good atmosphere in that home, that they didn't remove the children without cause. You have to have cause to move children. So I'm sure that there was cause. They removed the children. My knowledge is that up to today, those children still aren't back in the home. And, you know, I think that our instincts were correct, that those two people, I don't know if they're involved, but they seem to be holding back information. And I bet that when everything, you know, shakes out and the investigation is completed and we find out what did happen, that there's going to be some explaining to do by those two people, that they definitely told mistruths. We've established that several times already. So the vindication is that they removed the kids, and I think that our suspicions were right on track.
Joe Murray, thanks for the $4.99 super chat. He says, remember that just because they may be untruthful in their statements, here it could just be them cleaning up their act for CPS. Well, what, Joe, one of the things that we found out early on in the investigation was that his sister years ago reported to TBI maybe 2 days after Summer was missing that he had sexually abused her from the age of 5 till she was about 10 or 12, I believe it was. So TBI had that early in the investigation, and if I believe that's true, someone who's a pedophile or a sexual abuser, most of the time had that happen to them too. The abuser was the abused, but he's not going to stop doing that. So was he in fact also sexually abusing Summer and his own kids for that matter? So all the folks that are out there who were championing Don and saying, oh, what a good guy he was, they have evidence that besides his criminal history, which, look, people can turn their life around from a criminal history, but as late as last October, he had threatened Candace's life, and he had a gun in the car, he was drunk, and she didn't go forward with the prosecution. So, we're the police, or we were the police, and we dealt with this stuff all the time. And something like that, at least where we worked, was a must arrest. Whether she wanted to prosecute or not, it would have been PSNY. People State of New York would have prosecuted it, because we couldn't walk away from a domestic violence incident, because we've learned from the past that walking away from a domestic violence incident sometimes makes it escalate to a murder investigation. So that's why, and then when we marry this to this sexual abuse, in fact, he was in prison. He got out of prison. The night he got out of prison, from what I understand, he went right back to sexually abusing his sister. So horrendous. And, sexual abusers aren't healed. And I'm sure there's probably someone in the chat that's probably a doctor or has background in that type of investigation, and they don't get healed from that. So it's a horrible thing.
Bill, you brought up a great point, because I'm going to just back up a little bit. Me and you are two detectives, let's say, or a detective and a sergeant responding to a case of a missing person, a 5-year-old kid, and there would probably be other detectives around. And I always worked in a team concept. And the minute that I took the name, address, and date of birth of the two people that are reporting, let's say Candace and Don, or even if it's just Candace, I would ask who the father is. I'm going to hand that off to another detective. I'll do it myself, and we're going to run the criminal background check. That's standard operating procedure. Anybody involved in an investigation, whether it be a missing person or murder, I'm going to check them out. I'm going to run them for their record. And then I'm going to ask them about if they, in my interview, I'll ask them, have you ever been arrested? Now they're going to say, no, I've never been arrested. But then I'm going to have this piece of paper with all the arrests. And, when you're looking at a 5-year-old missing, you're going to always look at, could it be some type of an abduction for, sexual satisfaction? So now you have that he had a previous arrest for sexual abuse on his own sister. And like you said, Bill, these type of things, they don't just fade off when you get arrested. There is mental health for people like that. And
Phil, could I just stop you for 1 second?
Sure.
Dot to dot. She says she's a clinical therapist here, and sexual abusers are never healed. So
well, there you go. You have it from a doctor right there. So, I mean, and looking at all those things, and then you brought up the domestic violence case, which was only a few months prior to Summer being reported missing, where he was drunk and he was carrying an illegal firearm, and he was arrested by the police, and they dropped the charges based on Candace's statements that she didn't want him arrested. She didn't want to follow through with it. Like you said, in New York City, it would have been a must arrest situation. The people State of New York would have been the complainant on that, and it would have gone ahead. However, in Tennessee, it didn't. But the point is this: if he was arrested as a child for sexual abuse and he had nothing else ever arrested, no run-ins with the law ever again until his current, till today, you might say, okay, there's a chance that maybe he was reformed. But it looks like he had other run-ins with the law, there's other criminal activity. And also, in the day that the children were taken, The reason they say the children were taken is because he was in a drunken, he actually made comment on it, a drunken incident, or he used a different word. So, I mean, you know, he was under pressure with all the stuff going on. His daughter's missing. He went into a drunken rage. They removed the kids. My point is this: the behavior hasn't changed. It's consistent from when he was young and he was getting arrested, whether it be for sexual abuse or years and years later when he's getting arrested for domestic violence with Candace. He has a history. Now, that does not make him the perpetrator 100%, but that makes him a good suspect to be looked at and answer all of these things out. That's all. I mean, I would just want answers to these questions. And I don't think that they're out of the realm of possibility to look in that direction. And, you know, we've had some people that say, oh, you know, you're going after him, this and that. We're not going after him for no reason. I have my instincts. Bill, you've been on hundreds and thousands of jobs, like I said earlier. And when you walk in, you can tell pretty early on if a person is using narcotics or abusing alcohol. That's what it appeared to me. So that right away, that's the first red flag. In the first 2 minutes I'm talking to them, that's a red flag. And then all of the things that they said, and now you get back to the office or you get it done by another detective and they hand it to you. Now you got a lot of criminal history. I don't know what Candace's criminal history is, but Don seems to have a pretty hefty jacket. So, you know, these are the things that you're going to build your case on. You're going to move forward with that.
You know, Phil, some of the people in the chat are saying that Don was never arrested for sexual abuse, but the allegation from his sister, and she reported it to TBI, and I know they can refer the report to the state that it occurred in. And I don't know what the statute of limitations are in the specific, I think it was Utah. I don't know if that is still prosecutable at this instance, but the allegations sounded pretty damn believable, you know, and we've seen lesser allegations result in prosecution for this type of thing. And so it's like to say that he's innocent of it because he was never arrested of it. Well, she never charged him of it. And a lot of people that are sexually abused are afraid to come forward because there's such a stigma to it. We've seen that in religions. We've seen a lot of that in the Catholic Church, where priests have been alleged to have committed sex crimes against children. So it's not an easy thing for the complainant to come forward. And that's what I'm saying. And I'm not, again, saying, look, Don doesn't make me feel good when I see him speak. And I don't, of course, everyone is innocent until proven guilty. But he just, every time he opens his mouth, it seems like he puts his foot in it, you know.
You know, Bill, we're not saying that he did anything wrong. That's not what we're saying. We're saying that based on the information that we know, and again, we don't have privilege to the actual case folder or any of the information or the investigators. We're not talking to the investigators, but what we see, we just think that he has a little bit more explaining to do based on his criminal history, his substance abuse and alcohol abuse or whatever was going on. And there's obviously something going on in that home that they removed those kids. They haven't brought them back. And
well, you know, Phil, he also, people in the chat is telling me right now that he admitted to the sexual abuse. So,
and she, the sister is making these allegations currently. It's not like she made it, 40 years ago or 20 years ago. And, she today she's saying it's not true. She's allegating it today that these things occurred. So, I mean, listen, again, we don't know that he did it or he didn't do it. We don't know that, but we definitely have, we're on solid ground to say that we think he should be looked at. And we think that these other things, these red flags and these inconsistencies should be explored for sure.
Phil, we're going to go to a quick break, and then we'll come right back. We just have a couple of commercials to go through, and you could do the first one.
Are you tired of the same old surroundings? Are you looking to relocate? Or are you just in need of a real estate agent in the Myrtle Beach, South Carolina area? Well, Carol Waters is your girl, and her husband, Rob Mahon, who is a retired member of the NYPD and a New York Fire Department, are both $1 million sales agents down in South Carolina, Myrtle Beach. Carol and her husband, Rob, can be reached at 914-261-6681. That's 914-261-6681. Or you could email her at carolwaters carolwaterssells@gmail.com. That's carolwaterssells@gmail.com. One of her customers said she always goes the extra mile. Joe Murray, we wish he was here tonight under the weather. Get well soon, Joe. Have you found yourself in a jam? Are you in need of legal counsel in the New York area? Do you need a victim's advocate? Joe Murray is your man. He's not only an experienced trial attorney, he's also a retired 15-year member of the NYPD. He knows both sides of the fence. His website is jmurray-law.com. That's jmurray-law.com. His telephone number is 646-838-1702, 646-838-1702, or email Joe at joe@jmurray-law.com. I would put that phone number in my phone just in case.
Folks, policecoffee.com is an officer-owned business dedicated to crafting the finest coffees and blends. It'll provide you with the freshest coffee available. Each batch is roasted through fresh by people who know what it means to stay vigilant. And our specialty coffees do not waste one drop when flavor is concerned. Our coffee is some of the best you'll find, but it also helps serve an important cause, giving back to our community. 50% of the profits goes towards helping family members of police officers who fell in the line of duty. To order coffee and related products, just go to policecoffee.com. Go to the website. There are over 7 types of coffee to choose from. 50% of the profits go to officers' families in need. For a 10% discount, use code OTC10. That's off the cuff 10. That's policecoffee.com. I just actually ordered some of this coffee myself, so I'll report back to you on how good it is. If you're looking for supplements, be sure to check out the products from firstdonutrition.com. As first responders, there are certain expectations in our performance on the job. We train hard and drill often to be able to perform at our best when duty calls. Whether it's hoofing over 100 pounds of gear or engaging in a spontaneous foot chase, we work out like our life depends on it, because it does. 2 New York City firemen created the supplement line with hand-picked products that will not pop positive on any drug test for first responders. Solid pre-workout products that will give you a good pump and a short-term strength boost that can help you power through your workout. Supplements that help with fat burning and weight loss, and post-workout formulas that support recovery. Go to firstdonutrition.com. Use code OFFTHECUFF to get 10% off your order. You know, folks, this case, again, is not an easy case, obviously. If it was easy, there would already be closure to it. But the reason it's really caught the heartstrings of everyone nationally is because of this little girl, Summer Wells. And what we all state all the time is that we hope and pray that little Summer can be recovered alive. That would be the most amazing thing if that could happen. But today is the 70 days since this occurrence. So, you know, it's not a probability. Could it be? Could this happen? Could she be alive? 100%. I would never be the one to say, oh, there's no hope. But 70 days gone by, and this is a case that at least we don't have all the information on. And we're hoping that Hawkins County, the TBI, the FBI has more information that we're not privy to. And again, we like to shout out to Midwest EquiSearch, David Rader and Twyla there. These folks do God's work, and they've recovered over 244 remains of children that have been missing all over the world, not just in this country. And they've actually recovered 400 people alive. So they're an unbelievable organization. They're a nonprofit 501c3. And I've spoken to Dave Rader on numerous occasions. What a superstar, as all these people are. And if they were asked to come back to Hawkins County, they would do it in a minute. But they have to be asked. They don't just show up without being asked.
Bill, I want to make a comment about Texas EquiSearch and Midwest EquiSearch. I was very, very skeptical when I heard about this group because I thought they would just be amateurs traipsing into possible a crime scene. However, I was 100% wrong. like you stated, 1,860 searches that they've conducted so far, 400 missing returned safe. That's a big number. Think about it. 400 people missing, returned safe to their family. That's a big number. Obviously, you said 200 and I have 238. You said 40 remains recovered. And not one crime scene was compromised by them doing their search. The minute they found something, they closed off the area. They backed out. They notified the proper authorities. And I think that in New York City, it's not very likely that they'd be doing searches here because we have such a tremendous police department. But anywhere across the country, any law enforcement agency, do not hesitate to enlist these people to help you. They're professionals. They have professional equipment right up to date. I mean, they have drones that can tell if an area was, if it was dug up or if it was disturbed, if the earth was disturbed. They have real high-tech stuff. They go out with GPS monitoring. They know what they're doing. I was completely wrong. I was very skeptical, but they are very professional, and they are a non-for-profit organization. You can make a donation to them, and it wouldn't be a waste of money. I would say it's actually a very good cause.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I reiterate, and maybe I talk about too much on this show, is that one of the reasons I love doing this show is the fantastic people that I get to meet in conjunction with doing this show. And that includes guests, people in the chat, people that want to be in the police off the cuff family. And, it's an amazing thing to me. And one of them I include as an amazing person is Dave Rader from Midwest EquiSearch, and Tim Miller, of course, the founder, who's from Texas EquiSearch. And these people
when you hear his story, Bill, I don't mean to interrupt you, but when you hear his story, his daughter was abducted and murdered years back. And I mean, it's just tremendous that he went through that, and now he decided to turn it around and make something positive come out of something so horribly negative. And now Dave Rader joined in with him, and they're a great team and very successful. And the people, our hats got to go off to those people that do. I mean, they do it on the weekend. They work all weekend and they give up their weekends. They volunteer their time to help in these searches, and God bless them all. And it's really, like you said, we met a lot of good people, and it's brothers helping brothers and sisters helping sisters. And it's really, it's good to be part of it. Like you said, I feel very honored to be part of the guests and the people we meet, just like Dave Rader and Tim Miller, like you said, Bill.
100%. No one, thanks for the $4.99 chat. Your question is it normal to not have any real searches since the beginning? Is that a sign that they know who is involved? I don't think so. I don't think it's a sign that they know who is involved. Could they know, well, they absolutely know a lot more than we know. But do they know enough to solve this case? If they did, it would be solved right now. They haven't pulled the trigger on anybody or anything. So we just got to hope and pray that they're going in the right direction, that they're collecting information, that they got evidence. And at some point, let's hope that they find this little angel, this 5-year-old girl that's been missing for 70 days,
That was a great question that young lady posted. Now, I don't know that there wasn't extensive search in the beginning. I think she thinks that maybe EquiSearch came in later on. There may have been some pretty good searches in the beginning, but she makes another good point without even realizing it. There may be enough right at this point to arrest someone. And it just could be that the prosecutors, the district attorney's office is holding back on that, because in New York, when we would have a case that turned into a murder case, the district attorney's office would be plugged in right from the beginning, and we would have to get authorization from them to make the arrest, because they're the ones that are going to try the case, and rightfully so. They'd say, all right, wait for this, wait for that, do this, do that. And they may be waiting until, if there is horribly a homicide in this case, and they may be waiting for remains to be found, they may be holding back on it. They could have enough to make an arrest at this point. We don't know. But again, there might be more leads and tips coming in, and there might be stuff coming back on subpoenas and search warrants, and regard to the electronics, cell phones, computers, video cameras. So we don't know exactly that part of it. Again, there may be a lot more than we know. And there may be people, they may be waiting to put bracelets on somebody, or more than one person. And it'll all come together. I know we've been saying it. You got to be patient, and I think it's going to happen. Just it needs time.
Lieutenant Peter Pranzo from Harlem Raiders, NYPD. Thank you for the $5 super chat. Appreciate Bill and Phil putting the facts of the case together and coming up with sound ideas. Thank you, Lieutenant Pete. For you folks that don't know who Lieutenant Peter Pranzo is, he's actually an NYPD legend, and he's got a book called The Harlem Raiders, and I appreciate him and his wife, Richella. They're here all the time. They're some of the biggest supporters of
Good
police
people,
off the
really
cuff.
good people.
Unbelievable. Jim Davis, I live in East Tennessee, and we will never, never forget this sweet angel. It has impacted my life majorly because these poor kids had such a rough life. Jim, I agree with you. I think you're right. Kathy Varela, from hearing Jeannie's interview, she stated that her mom and her wanted to tell her story. But from what I understand, the stepfather, Don's father, threatened divorce. Then she should have divorced him, if he's hiding a sexual predator, even though it's his son, she should have walked out on him. Teresa loves Roro. Hope the kids get adopted by a loving family. They shouldn't return back to those two. Miss Justice 1111 EquiSearch is in here. EquiSearch, I've spoken to Dave Rader in the last 2 weeks, and he said if they're called to come back, they would come back in a minute. But they have to be requested. They're not just going to show up by themselves. So they have to be requested by the police agency involved. And Carolyn Fields Hawkins won't let them come back. I don't know the politics of this. I don't know if what they know about the search, what's been searched, what hasn't been searched, if it would continue to be fruitful to search. So we don't know the answers to those questions. Denise Pennington says EquiSearch not needed back at this time, they were told. I think that may be great news. Well, Denise, we could maybe read into that as that maybe they have some information that we don't know about,
That's something positive for sure, Bill, because, if this was a needle in a haystack, you'd want as many people searching as possible. That's obviously an indication of something. But, tomorrow morning, someone may walk in and say, I saw, I don't know, I'll just use Don as an example. I saw Don in this area and he went into the woods, and, they may call EquiSearch tomorrow and say, we want help going into this area. It's a large area to search. And, but I think that does say something for sure. If they were told, if that in fact is true, if they were told they were not needed back, I mean, it could be somebody playing a boundary line that they didn't want them involved, but I doubt very highly, since they're such professionals, that says something for sure. There was another question here from Charmax 2. Does law enforcement tell people if they passed or were deceptive in a lie detector test? Why would they tell Don and Candace they passed? I mean, we don't know whether that's true, not true. We didn't use lie detectors a whole lot, as Bill and I have stated before. But if they were given a lie detector test and they failed, I doubt they would have made it out of the room. They probably would have confronted them with that right away. And if they passed, I guess it would only be right to let them know that they passed. But we don't even know that they took it. That's what they're saying. We're just going by their word. And, who knows? I do understand that in the beginning, they offered to give her a lie detector test to Candace, and she flipped out, or she was drunk, or she was high. You can't give a person a lie detector that's intoxicated. So, and I don't know whatever became of it after that. They're going around saying that they took it and they passed. It's their word. We don't know for sure, and it's not corroborated.
Rosemary Hill, I saw this the other day. She asked whether or not some channel's asking for $2,000 so Don and Candace can get a copy of the complaint report. They get that they don't have to pay for it. They could, their attorney or whoever they could get as discovery, they would also get it. But you could a regular citizen could get a copy of that based on the Freedom of Information law once they would release it. So there would be a fee. There may be a $10 fee, but it's certainly not $2,000. And the people involved in that, through their attorneys, they can absolutely get a copy of it.
What are they asking for, Bill? 2,000.
Some channel is trying to say that it costs $2,000 to get a copy of the complaint report. That's pure nonsense.
That's bullshit.
People make this stuff up, and
yeah.
I mean, it's just it's just
somebody trying to scam money. That's what that is.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's a pure nonsensical. Whoever made that up is just has no business talking about anything to do with law enforcement, because total nonsense. It's a scam.
New York would give it to you redacted stuff if there's sensitive information on there. Give it to you for free. So maybe $5 or $10, whatever it is. That's nonsense.
Right. The NYPD gives nothing away for free. You want a copy of a report? Yeah, that'll be
depending on who you know. Depending on who you know.
Yeah, that'll be $10 for the copy of the report. Absolutely. Folks, all we can say, and thank you everyone tonight for listening in here. We hope and pray that Summer Wells is, of course, recovered alive. I didn't like the way, we watched again the interview of Don and Candace. I didn't like the way that sounded from day one, and there's several different scenarios that could have occurred during this case. The abduction one, it seems that most law enforcement professionals think that, yes, could that have happened? Yes, but it's not likely based on the facts, the time frame and all of that stuff, where their house is, how far it is into the woods, the 13 dogs they have on the property. Would she have walked off? I mean, one of those, that doesn't seem likely. EquiSearch, Dave Rader felt it was totally not a possibility. So when you listen to the professionals, some of the other things were that, could she have been involved in an accident? And because they covered it up, they got rid of, the body. There's all of these people hypothesizing and theorizing, we'll use that term again, without evidence or facts, because that's what investigators do. And that's what, of course, you folks that are listening in the chat room and listening to different channels talk about this case. And look, everyone has a right to their opinion. What may have happened, Could Don and Candace be involved in this? Yeah, I think they could be. Could the grandmother have taken her away? Yes. But again, we think law enforcement knows a lot more that they're keeping very close to the chest, and they're not letting us know that. So if we were intimately involved in this investigation, one of the investigators supervising the investigation, we would have answers to these questions. But again, we said it a million times, we're not privy to the case folder. We're not privy to the interviews, the confidential interviews that the police have done. We can just hypothesize and theorize. I love that term. And the third part of that, I used to say to my detectives, stop hypothesizing and theorizing and start typerizing your reports. Yeah.
Yeah, I get it.
They hated when I said that.
I'm glad people are putting their theories forward because they're using common sense, but we've really eliminated, so to speak, some of them. Like the theory about her walking off the property and, going into the woods and collapsing and not being found. I think that's almost, I'd say 100% zero. That's zero, because between the dogs and all the activity, and then they did searches and EquiSearch was there, and Bill Rader was on the ground on the property, and he said that was unlikely. The other thing was the abduction. Very little weight goes into that. The time of day, the people that were home, the dogs, all of that. The only two things that I see is there was some type of an accident. It was covered up. And then the other thing could be an intentional murder. And, there was also people were putting out there, Bill, you and I talked about it, that maybe Candace took her and brought her somewhere else to keep her safe from whatever abuse is going on in the home. I think that it was a possibility, but I think with all the pressure that's been going from then till now, 7, 8 days in, I would think that she would have come forward with the truth, or whoever had her would have said, hey, enough is enough. People are out searching and, this is getting a little out of control. I think somebody would have said, hey, she's safe. We have her. So I don't think that's a possibility.
Phil, you would hope that. Our Freedom 715, you said no one is ever asking for $2,000 to get the police report. People are not relaying things correctly. Then please straighten me out. I read something about that on another channel also. And you repeat, no one ever asked for $2,000 for a police report. If you're going to repeat something, repeat the facts. Let me know what the facts are, our Freedom 715. I saw on another channel that someone was saying that they had heard that it cost $2,000 to get the police report. I heard that with my own ears. So
Yeah.
if I'm
I think
wrong,
that was a comment or something, right, Bill? That's
yeah. If I'm wrong, our freedom, please give me the facts and I'll correct it.
Yeah, we can tell you from our standpoint that that's definitely positively not the way it goes. I mean, there's thousands of dollars could be spent on a lot of different things with criminal defense and stuff like that when you're calling for the minutes on a trial and stuff. But a complaint report is not 2,000. But Bill, I want to bring up one other thing, a little off topic. I have a new moniker for you and I want to see if the people like it in the chat. Sergeant Bill and Detective Phil. Sergeant Bill and Detective Phil. Sergeant Bill and Detective Phil.
It's too hokey.
a lot of people, they say, "Oh, Bill and Phil, Bill," and I'm thinking of that movie Kill Bill and all of that. Sergeant Bill and Detective Phil. And a little backstory on how you and I got together, and I think we talked about it earlier, that you and I were both privileged to be on a show called The Perfect Murder, which was done by Kevin Kaufman and a retired first grade detective, Rick Torelli. So he asked us for stories and to eventually act in the show. So I met you. You had already done a couple of episodes, and I did one with you, which was called Driving with the Devil. I think it was in 2016. And then I went on to do 2 more. I gave him stories and from my old squad, from the 60 squad. And then when we started doing the show, we got Joe Murray involved. There's a lot of other police officers and bosses that we worked with. And it's sort of like Duty Run. Can't leave Duty Run out. Duty Run really, I mean, I've been on his show. You've been on his show. He's been on your show. He's been on this show. And, he was a great help for it. So the point is that there's camaraderie here. We're all trying to help one another. And I just think that it's going pretty good. I think Sergeant Bill, Detective Phil.
Roro asks, are DNC told they have to stay in their area? I don't know. I don't know if they were told that they're not allowed to travel. I don't think so. But
where are they going? Where are they going?
Yeah,
really?
I don't know. I don't think they're going to be going anywhere, but I don't think they're confined. I don't believe they are. I could be wrong again. Because, could they be told to stay around? No, not really, unless they were placed under arrest,
Legally, they can't be told not to leave. That's something from television. Don't leave the state and all of that. But if there was some type of a person that had assets that could flee the country, they would take away a passport and things like that. But Don and Candace have been on so many different news interviews and podcasts. Where can they go and hide? I don't think that's even a consideration at this point. Even if they left the state, they'd be pretty easy to find. So
right.
I don't think that's
life is short. Sergeant Bill and Detective Phil, you're both great. Thank you so much. Life is short. That's very kind of you. Deborah Haig, I'm wondering if Candace and Grandis forgot about summer when sorting groceries, etc., and someone passed in the SUV from the heat. I mean, I would discount nothing. Anything is possible. Is it probable that happened? I don't think so. It'd be hard. Look, as I said, anything is possible. You can't rule out anything.
Couldn't you see, Bill, though, if God forbid there was some type of an accident that they wouldn't want to be held responsible for, and maybe, disposing of Summer? Isn't that a possibility in your mind, Bill?
Look, everything's a possibility. We look at not just possibilities, but probabilities, and that's what we base our investigation on, the probable direction that it should go. Are we wrong sometimes? Yes. We've all been wrong before. And when we're wrong, we start all over. Angela Eng, Sergeant Bill and Detective Phil, I like it. Thank you. And Joe Murray. Joe Murray, New York foil compiled for law enforcement purposes, in which, if disclosed, would interfere with law enforcement investigations or judicial proceedings. And a FOIL, of course, stands for Freedom of Information Law. Yeah. So, Joe Murray is dying to be here, but he's not feeling well. So he's in the chat. That's the second best thing. And I know a lot of you ladies think Joe's a real suave, good-looking fella, and he is. But
he's got a lot of admirers on this channel.
And, Joe just found out that his phone number that he listed on his commercial, he didn't check it. It was ringing off the hook. And he just found out about that today, and he's answering
Really?
hundreds of calls that he's been getting. You know,
I
and
guess I didn't read that number out in vain then.
but he just found this out. You know,
Good.
Kim Wendell. They told Don they would help him raise the money, that they can be about $2,000. Well, we discussed that before, and I was told I was wrong and I wasn't reporting facts, but I heard it with my own ears, so I don't know how I wasn't reporting it.
There's a question from Mercy K. What would their charges be if they concealed the body? Now, I think that's a great question. If they just concealed the body, there's a charge, illegal disposing of a human body, but they would have to know for a fact. They'd have to know all the details and the facts of how the person died. I mean, if they just covered it up, but there would be more charges than that. I mean, they've reported a missing, falsely reporting an incident. There'd probably be a lot of other things. But if she, in fact, died by accident and they just covered it up, I don't think they would see a lot of jail time. So that's the answer to your question.
All right, our Freedom 715. A Ghost knows she said that someone from a previous case she heard was asked to pay $2,000 for a report they wanted. She never said it would cost Don $2,000, but that's very similar. And no one paid $2,000 for a police report, so that's false information. It's just not anywhere remotely correct. Factual breakdown: if someone had an accident, I think she either drowned or hit her head. Candace and Don were afraid the death wouldn't be ruled an accident. Well, you know something? There's a distinct possibility to that, because, as we said, it appeared that Candace was high and or drunk when she did that interview. So,
and let's not forget that they talked about ingesting this tea drink with the alcohol in it, and they went to get painkillers from the drugstore from the mother's trip to the emergency room. So, you know, you got to put all the components together here and look at it. And there could have been some type of, you know, even if she died by an accident, not at their hands, and God forbid she drowned or something, but they were high and they didn't want to expose themselves to, you know, being involved with law enforcement in that condition, that they could be, you know, oh, you weren't watching or something. So anything's possible, of course, but I think those components of where they were before, the narcotics that they picked up, the painkillers, the drinking the sweet tea or whatever that thing is called, which is an alcoholic beverage, all of those things have to be looked at. And there's obviously a history of substance and alcohol abuse with both of those people. I mean, I think it's quite obvious. So,
wow, you know something. And as I said a bunch of times, this is a complicated case. There's nothing easy about this case, and the longer it stays open, the more different things will come to light. The more rumors will come to light, and again, rumors run rampant when you don't have the facts to dispute the rumors, you know. And, you know, we used to say on the New York City Police Department, rumors were the way that people put out information just to make themselves feel better, you know, because sometimes, you know, rumors help people. Oh, if that's true, that's good. But most of the time it wasn't true, you know.
Factual breakdown puts Twisted Tea. It was called Twisted Tea. She put Twisted Tea for twisted people. I guess there could be something to that.
Heather Smith, I highly doubt Grandma got opioids for a bad knee at ER in today's climate of opioid hysteria. If she did, it was only a 3D drug by law in Tennessee, especially on WC billing. Okay, thanks. So, you know, there's a lot of professional people in the chats, and a lot of people know a lot of things about their area of expertise. And Phil and I will be the first to admit we don't know everything. For sure, we don't know everything.
Yeah, but I'm sure she could have gotten, listen, some kind of painkiller, Tylenol or codeine. You take 4 or 5 of those and you drink a Twisted Tea, you're flying. So, I mean, I don't know what the laws are or how they dispense there, but I mean, depending on the severity of the injury, you know, if she's an elderly woman, she's got a twisted knee, they probably prescribe the painkiller. So, you know, anything's possible though.
You know, folks, I think that we've sort of, you know, presented what we wanted to present tonight. And as I said in the beginning, we didn't have any new smoking gun information that everyone would be like, oh, wow, we found out this new stuff. But we still want to keep this case alive and to keep folks interested in it and keep the memory of Summer being missing for 70 days and keep this case in the consciousness of the public. And by, just presenting what we did tonight, I think that helps it a little bit. And it's always good to talk about it and to come up with ideas. Joe Murray states, Bill, that's why I love this community. I learned so much here at Police Off the Cuff. Thank you so much, Joe. And of course, Joe Murray, we hope that you feel better. We know you're a little bit under the weather. And folks, if you're not subscribed to Police Off the Cuff, please go on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, give us the thumbs up, ring the bell. We also now have a membership. We have 4 tiers. I'll just go over them quickly. The Bucket, Polish My Rack, Dipped in Butter. And we couldn't think of the highest level. So we said, something? What's better than Dipped in Butter? Heated butter. Dipped in heated butter. So the highest tier is heated dipped in butter. So we have a sense of humor on this show too. And as we said earlier, we have some amazing guests coming up, and we want to keep this case alive, though, to keep our police perspective on this case and keep this case out there in the public consciousness. Phil, you have any last words?
Yeah, looking forward to September 15th, Wednesday night, 9 p.m. We'll be interviewing Sammy the Bullgravano, world-renowned organized crime member. He was an underboss. I'm actually, Bill and I are going to have a phone call tomorrow with Jimmy Calandria to possibly get him on. And we're working on some other guests in the organized crime genre. Looking forward to doing the show. Obviously, keep the Summer Wells case alive. Anything that pops up on that case, we'll be right on it. So we'll do an update show. If something pops tomorrow, we'll be right on it tomorrow night. So, just keep your fingers crossed and prayers for Summer. I'm looking forward to doing these upcoming shows, and then any other national shows or national attention missing person cases. I mean, this is what we did. This is what we do. And with regard to the organized crime cases with Tommy Dades that we're going to go over, him and I both come from Brooklyn and grew up around this type of stuff. Bill said earlier that Sammy the Bull was right in my neighborhood. I never, shook hands with him and said hello to him, but I did know who he was. I had seen him around. And so it's going to be intriguing stuff. We'll bring it right to you. And if you didn't subscribe and keep the comments coming. We love the comments because everybody's theory, everybody's opinion. We're willing to answer the questions. We don't say things off the cuff, as they say, but we say them with conviction because we have experience and, our opinions are from a professional view.
Divine Visions Readings, thank you so much for the $5 super chat. If someone died at house and was immediately removed, is it possible sniffer dogs missed that scent? Thanks for your great work. I don't think so. I mean, look, I'm not a dog expert, but I think if a scent was in the house, the dogs would have had a positive hit on that. So, I know Duty Ron did several shows in regards to the dogs. He had EquiSearch on. He had some canine people on. So all of those questions, which I am not an expert on, I think they've been answered, on different Rosemary Hill. I've had a few cops polish my rack in my youth. I love that, Rosemary Hill. Yeah, we all have a sense of humor. I was a little worried, but I can explain that to you guys on the NYPD. Your shield is on the left side of your shirt, and your medals are above your shield. So when my detectives got on my nerves, I used to say to them, "Go get your gun cloth and some gun oil and go polish my rack." And it was like a put down, but there was a good sense of humor to it. So we put that as one of our sayings on Police Off the Cuff. Go polish my rack, and I think it's funny. And I was a little worried that people wouldn't find that to be funny, but I think it's funny.
We got to show a picture of the rack. I think I sent you a picture of me in uniform where I had my rack there, and people will understand those medals. You want to keep them shiny and clean. It looks good if you're into your appearance in your uniform. So go polish my rack.
Go polish my rack. That is funny. That is very funny.
It is.
So, folks, thank you so much for listening tonight. Thank you so much for supporting Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. On behalf of myself, Sergeant retired Sergeant Bill Cannon, and Detective Phil Grimaldi from straight out of Brooklyn. Thank you so much for listening tonight, for joining us, and please be safe and have a great tomorrow, great evening, and a great tomorrow.
Stay safe, everybody. Sergeant Bill, Detective Phil, signing off.